My name is Sean Thomas, and I'm the author of Be More Today, a 40-day guide to a better version of you. As doctor of physical therapy, I've seen thousands of people do great things. They came to me with ailments, physical ailments, pain, issues, and they got through them, all because they decided in their mind they were going to do it. And I guarantee you, if you just trust the process and be persistent, you too can be the best version of you. Have you ever been out and about with nowhere to stash your keys and ID so you can be hands-free? Whether you're running errands, traveling, or hitting the trail, Spy Belt is the belt that goes where you go. Made with stretchable fabric and a low-profile design, Spy Belt is your perfect companion to keep your essentials secure without bouncing or chafing. Choose from several prints and colors in the original, a wider band in the Pro versions, or the newest Spy Belt, Whiteout, an all-white belt that is perfect for summer. Visit www.spybelt.com to get your Spy Belt today. Run smart, run free, run with Spy Belt. Don't let aches and pains hold you back from living your life. At JAG Physical Therapy, our experienced clinicians create a personalized treatment plan that fit each and every patient's needs uniquely. Whether it's recovering from an injury or enhancing your performance, we've got you covered. With over 150 locations throughout New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, there is sure to be a JAG Physical Therapy location near you. Visit jagpt.com and book an appointment today to get back the life you love. That's jagpt.com, jagpt.com.
Welcome to the Be More Today show. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our show today. Now, let's hear it from our host, Dr. Sean Thomas.
What's going on, folks? Your boy again, Dr. Sean Thomas, back in the building with the Be More Today show. We are back in the building, folks. And again, we are still here in the fall season. We are grateful to be here in November, kicking off season 6 and about to conclude season 6 of the Be More Today show, now heard in 97 countries, reaching 76,000 downloads. This show has been growing since its inception.
Congratulations.
And it's been amazing. Thank you, Trin. Before we even get into that, let's talk about Be More Today. The book is out there, Be More Today, and our Project More book is also out there. So check out our site, BeMoreToday.com, for all those things. We just finished our Steps to Greatness Challenge, our 4th one for this year. So for everyone who was a part of the challenge, thank you so much for being a part. It's great to have people out there moving and getting their bodies right, even when the weather is starting to change. And we had so many people who were just trying to get their 10,000 steps in for 40 days. They did it, and they did it very, very well. So shout out and kudos to all of you who are part of that challenge. You guys rock. For more information about that, visit BeMoreToday.com or see us on Instagram and Facebook, BeMoreToday.pt, BeMoreToday.show, and your boy here at Dr. Sean Thomas. Again, the podcast is heard on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and our sponsors are grateful to be a part of this, and I'm grateful to have you guys as a part of this. So our sponsors are Spy Belt, the best running belt in the business. We love Kim and her team for always putting on a great product for Spy Belt. So thank you so much for Kim and Spy Belt for being a part of our Be More Today family. Of course, JAG Physical Therapy, the best PT locations in the Northeast. We give a shout out to John and our team, and our monthly patrons for giving to the show. I greatly appreciate it. As many of you may know, I am running the Boston Marathon next year, April 27th, and I'm doing a fundraiser with Stride for Stride. Stride for Stride is a nonprofit organization that buys race bibs for immigrant, BIPOC, and low-income runners. The goal is to make races more accessible and more diverse, because there's no reason why money should prevent you from getting to the start line, especially when you're crossing the line, and that can make a change in your life. And Stride for Stride has been great. They're now in 27 countries. They have over 430 runners, and every runner on that team receives free mental health from Stride for Stride. So I'm happy to be a part of that team. We're trying to raise $9,500 for Stride for Stride by April 27th. So we'll have the link in the show notes for that. If you want to give to that cause, I greatly appreciate it. Our quote for today is simple as always. The point of a goal isn't to hit it. It's about who you become in the process, by Charlotte Grimmel. This has been a year where we've seen many people on the show and many people in my lives try to hit goals. I had goals I had for this year, right? Running the Tokyo Marathon was a goal. And I didn't hit the goal that I wanted, but I became a different person because of it. I became smarter. I became more diligent. I became more disciplined. I learned more about my body. I was more in tune with what I need to do better for Boston for next year because of going through those things. And the whole point of a goal isn't just to hit it, it's to become better in the process, it's become better as you're learning about yourself and what you can do to improve yourself and to be a better person. And that's one of the things that I learned when I was running track and field at Brown University over 20 years ago. And I said, who can I have on the show this week to talk about also hitting goals, talk also about the process of becoming better, and also about growing and not giving up when things seem like they are hopeless. And our next guest on the Be More Today show to talk about that is none other than Trinity Gray. Now, Trinity is a former All American and Hall of Fame track and field athlete from Brown University. Bruno, you know. He went on
Yes,
to
sir.
compete professionally as a Nike sponsored athlete and became the number one ranked runner in the United States in his event. In 2009, Trinity's life changed when he underwent two brain surgeries to remove a craniopharyngioma tumor. The procedures left him blind in one eye with significant hormone loss and a rare condition called hypothalamic obesity, a condition widely considered virtually impossible to overcome. This past year, Trinity achieved what many medical professionals and researchers have struggled to do. He reversed hypothalamic obesity through vigorous self-study, data analysis, and a system-based approach. In the last 9 months, Trinity has lost over 100 pounds, reduced his A1C from 5.8 to 5.0, and reduced his BMI by 15 points. Folks, are you listening? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, pets included, please welcome to the Be More Today show. Our next guest, my fellow Brunonian and one of the baddest track and field athletes I ever had the chance to run with, Trinity Gray. Trinity, what is going on?
Oh man, thank you very much, man. Nothing much. It's good to be on here, and I really like the quote. And a lot of people when they make goals, the goal is not the end. Anytime you're setting out, something to achieve, it's really is not the goal itself. It's what happens through that process of reaching your goal. And we learned that through track, because that's when you do the most growth when you're pushing towards a goal. But then after that point, it's like, all right, who am I now? What's that next goal? That's why it's always one goal after the next, short term, long term. And that's we learned that as athletes. I use that, in my whole process of losing weight. Where for me, just thinking about my goal, it wasn't just to lose weight because everybody wants to lose weight. It really was to how do I teach my body how to do something it hasn't done over the last 15 years so I can reverse this debilitating disease I've been living with, and it just so happens that throughout the process, I got a lot healthier, mentally, physically, and, I got, my stats are looking pretty good as you saw, as you read off, and, I'm just feeling really good. So I definitely really wholeheartedly agree with that quote in the beginning. The goal is one thing, but who you become, through the process of achieving and surpassing or failing at your goal is really what's important.
Yeah, Trinity, I got to give you your kudos. I don't know if people know, and I'll just share a little bit. I was a freshman at Brown when you were a senior. So I came into a team with our coaches, Annenberg at the time, and shout out to them and Coach Jay and everyone else. We were an amazing team. And, when applied to Brown, one of the people that was clearly on the minds and tongues of everyone was you. Trinity Gray had broken every record for everything, right? You were on the record boards for everything. You were the best friend we had on the team. You were the track and field program. We had others who were on the program too, but the name Trinity Gray was the name that was heard everywhere because you were doing everything, right? 8-time All American, U.S. national champion, one of the fastest 800-meter runners in the country. And so coming on the team as this little freshman triple jumper, right?
Hmm.
I remember just rocking out with you. You had a nickname for me called Little Twink because I was small at the time, right? But I remember looking up to you and being like, yo, this guy is a superstar. I want to be good at my craft like he is. And I remember watching your work ethic. I remember you putting in hours on the track sometimes with the team, sometimes by yourself. And, that inspired me to that same freshman year when I came in, when I was freshman of the year. I said, I want to be the best that I can be. And I PR by 4 feet that freshman year, partially because I put work
Huge.
in, but I also was
Yeah.
looking at you as this senior who was already out there doing great things at school in the Ivies, but also looking past that towards national recognition. And, I just
Hmm.
want to give you a kudos, Trent, because you really
Appreciate it, man.
were a pillar for our program, but you also were a pillar of excellence and dedication to a craft. And just watching your story and following you for years, especially looking at you at U.S. trials and whatever else, I was always rooting for you. We were always rooting for you. I would tell everybody about, yo, you got to watch my guy. He's go out the run right now. When you're in Oregon, we're all watching you and rooting for you. And it was just
Yeah.
really exciting seeing your progression from the Ivy Leagues to the national stage. So I wanted to give you your flowers for that because
Appreciate
it
that,
was
man.
it was amazing to be with you at that time.
Yeah, no, that was a good time, man. I always wish I can go back and do some things differently, improve on others. But yeah, that time was such a time of, fearlessness. Being in college, you're just going out there and, you have one goal to be the best. And, in terms of setting out goals, that the whole theme of this show is that's when you really, as a track and field athlete, that's the hard part of, when you're looking at the beginning of the year, like we had 2 seasons.
Yeah,
So we sat down with our coaches in September and we had to plan out our goal to perform on one specific day in
right,
May.
right.
That type of planning, like that's crazy when you think about how we are able to do what we were able to do because the window was so big. There were so many deviations off the path, but by having these little check-ins with our coaches, we were able to achieve great things,
Yeah,
which is amazing.
yeah, yeah,
So sports is definitely something to look at when you're, especially track and field, where you only have a small window. Like you had 6 runways to achieve your goal, six
right,
times.
right.
I had 2 minutes to achieve my goal, but we had 10 months to plan for
Yeah,
it and to
yeah,
build up to that one event. It's
yeah.
amazing when you think about it.
No, absolutely. You put it that way, it's definitely amazing. And I think it's wild looking at your story. And I read the article you posted on LinkedIn, just talking about your journey. So for those who don't know, do you mind just really sharing with everyone, what happened between the running to what happened in 2009 that changed your life?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I was healthy all my life. I ran track and field from age 6 to 26 when I finally retired and went into financial services. And in 2009, um, I learned that I had a brain tumor. And it actually was something that I was born with. But fortunately, where most of the times it showed up during adolescence, mine decided to wait until I was 31. Because what that allowed me to do is to have a great athletic career, travel around the world, see a lot of things, and meet a lot of great people. And I had a choice. The craniopharyngioma is wrapped around your hindbrain, so it's wrapped around my hypothalamus area. And I could do chemo, I could do surgery, or do nothing. And chemo and do nothing was the least of the best option. So I decided to do surgery. It was very risky. I ended up, my thyroid was damaged, my hypothalamus was removed. Ended up having 2 surgeries that year and some gamma knife radiation. But at the end of that, so this first surgery is in January, my last surgery is in August. And then at the end of that, I was left with, 20% of my visual field. Have to take hormone replacements for the rest of my life. But the thing that really impacted me more than anything else was the diagnosis of hypothalamic obesity. And basically, what it is when your body, people who have like a traumatic brain injury or a surgery, a brain surgery, your body goes into it believes that it's not storing enough fat. It believes that, a famine's coming and it wants to store as much fat as possible. So it does a few things. One, it raises your blood sugar, and because, the higher your blood sugar, anytime you eat something, it's going to raise it even more. And that way, that extra glucose in your system is going to be stored as fat. It also makes you hungry, a lot of cravings. Like you don't, people say I have cravings for things. Well, your body actually made you crave things. And it's been proven doing studies where you have cravings, where you're eating a lot. You also, it decreased your energy expenditure. You're always tired. So it's doing all these things, increasing your blood sugar, making you more hungry, making you use less energy, all for the stated goal, which was good when we were cavemen, not so great now.
Right.
But the goal of my brain over the last 16 years have been to store fat because it believed that it was famine. It was time to get in fat storing mode.
Mhm.
And I battled with that over the last, I guess 16 years. And this year, I know we'll get into it, but I asked the question, can I reverse it? Like, how do I reverse this disorder? Or how do I, teach my body to get from storing fat to actually using fat for energy? And that's the process that I went through this year. And it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey.
Wild. So let's talk about the process, right? Movement as a physical therapist, I know is life changing, right? I've talked about people on the show, including myself, being pre-diabetic, how movement has helped with doing those things, reducing obesity rates. We have a step challenge that we do every single year. Um, I even talked in my book, actually talk about having a fatty liver at one point in time and about doing intermittent fasting. And those things helped me to calm down my A1C to get it within a regular limit. But for you did some major drastic changes, and
Yeah.
between intermittent fasting and dieting and working out, you mentioned that you turned towards Chat GPT and YouTube
Yeah.
to figure out what you can do to change your life. Talk to us about what that process was like and why you had to go that route compared to
Mm.
relying on regular science routines.
Yeah. So, I've been dealing with a lot of my doctors are great. I'll just say that, I have some of the best doctors that's been taking care of me over the last 15 years. But they weren't really getting me to where I wanted to go. And you always see stuff on YouTube. Also, people like yourself on podcasts talk about ways to get healthy, intermittent fasting, keto diet. And you hear all these things, but it's never really put together in a way that makes sense for you.
Mm-hmm.
So what I started to do is, I would say, ask ChatGPT, let's reverse hypothalamic obesity, and start talking through like let's list out what it's doing to my body and what are some of the things that are popular things that are talked about on YouTube that I can look at to start studying. So, ChatGPT is awesome. It gave me
Yeah.
a list of here's some topics, this is, based off of, the high glucose, a low keto diet. So I started studying on that, what is it about a low keto diet? What is it actually doing? So what I did, so I looked at ChatGPT to get inspiration and to kind of verify information a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
but I looked to YouTube to just gather information because I didn't want to just take someone's word and just say, all right, I'm just going to follow them because they're successful at it. I really just wanted to absorb as much information as I can, process it internally, and then like, all right, how can I incorporate this into my plan? And it just took one iteration after another to the point where, I created not even a diet or, it's more of a lifestyle that allowed me to really beat the odds. I remember going to my doctor's office in May, my diabetes doctor, she's been with me for almost a decade. In the whole meeting, she was like, wow, wow. That's all she could say was
Mm-hmm.
wow, 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 because of the success we made. But, basically, I use ChatGPT as a brainstorming partner, and I use YouTube as a kind of like a resource that I can kind of gather more feedback. I can check it against GPT and then start brainstorming. Okay, if I incorporate this, what's the best way to do it? So forth. It's a great tool.
Wow. Listen, I know people use chat and YouTube for many, many things, but I've never thought about using it in this regard and seeing it be
Yeah.
so successful for someone. So, talk to us about some of the things that you learned in terms of your workouts, in terms of
Hmm.
your diet. Because I know we talked about intermittent fasting on here a number of times, but
Yeah.
you said in your article that you're doing it 18 and 6. And most
Yeah.
people usually do like, a modified version of that, a 16 and 8 or something like that. But you've kind of gone in and being a
Yeah.
little more progressive with these things. How has that been successful for you in terms of you losing so much weight so fast?
It was very successful because when you think about, my end goal was weight loss, but the ultimate target was reducing insulin resistance. And I realized that in order to do that, I'm going to have to get my body to be less reliant on carbs
Hmm.
and to utilize more fat. And it does, having that strategy did two things for me. One, it gave my body a break from processing a whole bunch of sugars. But two, it also counteracted hypothalamic obesity, where my body naturally wanted to store fat.
Right.
Now I was, starving my body from carbs using keto. And then at the same time, I was restricting the amount of nutrients I was taking in via this 6-18 intermittent fasting. So now, when I ate, my window was between 9 and 3. So when I finished my meal at 3 o'clock, I had a long period of time to one, digest my food, and then my body had to go into its fat stores in order to, survive really. And then not only would I, fast, I also worked out fasted as well to keep pushing my body even more to having to say, look, we need to utilize these fats for energy. We can't rely on, the carbs. We use up all the muscle glycogen, and as I kept doing that, the body started getting used to using fats for energy. So, well, it wasn't for me trying to force it. It was just a natural thing that's just, kept occurring.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. We talk about intermittent fasting all the time. And I think people are like, oh yeah, I'll try it. I'll do it.
Yeah.
And they modify whatever they want to do. They 18 and 6 or whatever else. But I think for some people, because they don't stick with it,
Yeah.
they stop doing it, or they'll do it. Oh yeah, I did it during the week, but I cheat on the weekends, right? And then there's no
Yeah.
consistency in that. But really looking at your story and how amazing it was in
Hmm.
conjunction with, like you said, the working out, with the water intake and not having the sugary drinks, and making sure you're doing that consistently. That's the key. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
people miss that.
Consistency.
That
Yeah.
but
Exactly. And it's hard. It's
yeah,
very hard. And that's why people, don't do it as much.
right.
So what I did to allow myself more freedom to not necessarily have a cheat day, because once you get the results, you don't want a
Hmm.
cheat day.
Right.
I gave myself an option to do stuff, but I never really did. I maybe had some dessert or something on the weekends, but my weekdays were my really strict 9 to 3 was my window.
Hmm.
I ate, very little carbs, primarily protein. I stopped drinking soda and juices altogether. But on the weekends, I went out to eat. I ate regular because I didn't want my body getting used to a certain way of being.
Yeah.
So you do have to not have a cheat day, but allow yourself to get used, because eventually you have to get back on a normal schedule.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to control yourself on those normal days. For me, it's the weekend, but then get ready for after the weekend to go right back into the fasting, because the benefits is over the long term. If you're just doing it for a week, you're not going to see the benefits. Because think about it, Sean, so many people have, stores, years and years of storing glucose in their system.
Hmm.
It's going to take more than 1 week of fasting to get
Hmm.
all that, to use up those stores in order for your body to really start honing in and utilizing your fat as resource. It's going to take more than a week to start train your body to utilize fat. And it takes time and patience.
Yeah. Talk to listeners a little bit about the keto diet that you were
Hmm.
introducing to your life. I know people talk about keto and low calorie diets, but just talk to people about what you were actually eating, if you don't mind, so I can have a vision of
Yeah.
what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, it was very simple. Now, I wasn't strict keto. I was, well, I guess, Chat GPT called it keto light.
Hmm.
Um, so, in the morning, every morning I have like, I think it was about 2 or 3 eggs, some breakfast, like some sausage or something like that. And that was my breakfast. So I had, every day I ate breakfast, eggs, bacon, or sausage, some kind of breakfast meat. Really didn't have any carbs during that time. It was strictly, to kind of refuel my body, sticking to proteins. So around 12 o'clock, I would eat, some sort of snack. Some a protein yogurt sometimes, or I'll have, a protein shake. I didn't want anything heavy because I left my I guess final meal is more of my last meal of the day because that had to sustain me
Right.
for the next 18 hours. So then I would eat like a regular meal. So 3 o'clock would actually be my dinner. So I'm eating, a lot of primarily proteins. I'm eating, the stuff like, collard greens. I'm eating soups, stews. Is a Kenyan meal they make called ugali, where it's like a corn maze. I ate that. Try to focus on minimizing the carbs, but any carbs that I ate was able to not quickly raise my blood sugar, but it didn't really sit with me either. So I was
Hmm.
able to kind of like the good, I guess they call it the quality carbs or the good carbs, like sweet potatoes,
Right.
leafy vegetables, salads, and so forth. I didn't eat fruit during that time, which people think like fruit. Wow, you think you would be able to eat fruits and smoothies, but some of those things have the most sugar in them.
Hmm.
So really, it was mostly protein and sweet potatoes and leafy greens for the most part.
Yeah, that's great. And you know what's funny? That's what I did too when I was going through and continue to go through my struggles to keep my pre-diabetic self in the
Yeah,
normal
yeah.
state. But it
Hmm.
does come down to that. And I think, like you said, these aren't hard things to do, but just being consistent with it and intentional with it. And it does take some creativity, right? And I
Hmm.
think you're
Yeah.
right. It does take you having not a cheat day, but at least a time when you say, you know what, let me just relax a little bit and treat myself to the freedom of what's happening around me on the weekend, but then get right back to
Hmm.
that thing on Monday. It's kind of very similar to what we did for track, right?
Yeah.
We train all through the week, had our meet on the weekends. And I remember I mean, we did a lot of McDonald's runs, we did a lot of stuff after meets,
Hmm.
right? But then
Yeah.
we reset that thing back on Monday and get back
Back
to
on
work
Monday.
and back to the gym. So, there is a routine in that was successful clearly. I think that also applies to life, which is dope. Which is dope.
Yeah, and the key is not going crazy. Like it's not like the word cheat day, I think, gives it a bad rap. It's
Hmm.
more like an off day.
Right.
Because cheat day, people think, oh, I can eat anything I want. I can just,
Right.
and then by having your sugary drinks or your desserts and, eating as much as you want during those 2 days, you're removing all of the good stuff you've been doing over the 5 days.
Yeah.
So those cheat days are not really a cheat days. It's almost like a normalization day.
Right.
If I was normal, where I wasn't doing this stricter, diet and, timed eating and, what would I be eating? And
Hmm.
then try to start teaching yourself to eat healthier.
Hmm.
And then your results will be a lot better. I think the whole term cheat day, I think people just take that and run with it, usually in the wrong direction. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where the results kind of go out the window because they lose a lot of that momentum.
Right. Right. You said in your article, Trent, that you did all these things, you tracked it, you adjusted, and you repeated. And that was like your
Yeah.
ongoing thing every single time.
Yeah.
What I think is my question for you. What inspires you to stay consistent now with this? Because some people they do these things and they hit their goal, and after you hit your goal, you're like, all right, cool, we're done, right? I did what I had to do. This is great. Now I can either, like you said, have an off day, have a relaxing day, treat myself, whatever else, or I can kind of kick back from this a little bit, take off the gas a little bit, and maybe
Mm.
do, a reduced intermittent fasting schedule, or maybe I don't have to go as can have my orange juice, which I know you and I both love, every
Yeah.
now and then, and kind of hold that
Mhm.
back. What has inspired you and sustains you to keep this consistently as a part of your life?
I guess I guess the main thing is for the last 16 years, I struggled with something and I felt I was in a body that wasn't mine. When you're living in someone else's body and you feel that you can't do anything about it, when you kind of, it's almost like, when you don't have control and you gain that control of that thing you never had control of over the last 15 years, you don't want to give that control back.
Hmm.
So what motivates me is I want to maintain this control that I have over my body that I hadn't had over the last 16 years. Because a lot has occurred over that time. And I'm sure, based on my condition, I missed out on a lot of things in life. So I don't want to go back. So now that I have control, I want to keep control as
Mm,
much as possible and even push it more.
yeah,
Like I can get even healthier than I am right now.
yeah,
I made a lot of progress, but I want to get some muscles, I want to get some abs, I want to go to, it's like, but really it's kind of like I lived so long without being able to control my body that I don't want to get back there anymore.
yeah,
I just want to hold on as long as I can
yeah,
to be able to control myself.
yeah. You wrote another article, Trent, talking about leadership. And,
Hmm.
I know there are a lot of different analogies, and we talked about this on the show too, between the sports world and the real world, the working world. And I truly believe that people who are athletes can go out there and do great in the working world, in the working field, because the foundations you learn on the track, on the basketball court, on the football field, wherever, those are transferable to life. Being
Yeah.
consistent, being a hard worker, working with the team, all these different things. And you were talking about leadership, and you had some points talking about leadership that you learned from this experience. You mind sharing some of those points with us, with listeners,
Yeah.
so they can kind of understand where you were coming from?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a thinker and I love kind of thinking. And this is kind of the way I was able to create this process is through the just thought, being able to just think. And then I started, someone asked me, it's like, all right, well, what are some of the lessons you learned from that, that can apply to leadership? So I wrote an article on LinkedIn and I think it, I summed it up in 5 different takeaways. I think the number one takeaway, which is number one for me, which is important, is you got to understand what you're fighting. So understanding the root cause is how I put it. So for myself, I understood that hypothalamic obesity was what I was fighting. It wasn't all these different symptoms I had. It was my body doing what it was supposed to do, but doing it in a way that wasn't productive for me. And in business, in life in general, a lot of people make decisions without really understanding. They look at the symptoms, like, okay, this is occurring, but not really looking at, what's causing those symptoms, and they're chasing all these symptoms around versus saying, all right, wait, this is the root cause of all these different systems. How about we address the root cause and then we can solve everything, or we can at least attack it on multiple levels. So that was kind of, one of the things that I learned throughout this process. Another one is to, you know, when you're deciding to do something that's not, I know say haven't been done before, but you're deciding to do something, you have to have what I call a solution hypothesis. And for me, what a solution hypothesis is a thought that, or not either a guess or just a framework that you want to, say like, all right, well, my solution hypothesis was if I could teach my body to use fat for energy, it would counteract my body's current tendency to store fat.
Mm,
So I was able to have this almost like a North Star for myself, and everything kind of bounced off of that North Star. So when I used Chat GPT, when I did research on YouTube, everything was based on that North Star of having a solution hypothesis. And the other three things really kind of everything else in the article kind of starts and stops with those two things. One, it's important to understand what's causing the issue. Two, it's important for you, as a person, as a decision maker, to have an idea of how you're going to address that and what's the best way to do that. And then from there, you can start making decisions, start tracking data, start looking at, okay, I did this didn't work, let me try that. Start doing better research or brainstorming, whatever, you decide to do to address that issue.
Yeah. Those are all great points. And I think those are all transferable to real life, right? You understanding the root cause, creating solution hypothesis, defining success clearly, developing a strategy to address the problem, not the symptom, and use experts strategically. I think all those things are great takeaways that you can really apply to being a leader in your craft, in your field. And I can definitely see how you use all those things during your journey to get back the body that you really had. So it's wild.
No, it is. And, it certainly, I think that, a lot of people with the internet, with AI, Chat GPT, we give up our ability to think critically. That's one of the things that we all have to do more of. Like, yes, it's important for your listeners to rely on you for information, but they also have to internalize it as well. And you can't do that by using Chat GPT. You have to think critically to internalize it to yourself. How am I going to use the information that Sean's given me to help me reach my goal? What else could I incorporate that to help me even further? So it's one thing to absorb the data. It's another thing to, really think about it and, apply it. It's almost like an applied science versus more of a philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah. So Trin, what's next on the docket for you, man? Now that you've lost all this weight, you're feeling good, you're feeling nice. What's next on the journey for you in terms of either sharing this story or even physically or professionally?
Yeah, you know what I would love to do? A couple of things. Well, the one thing more than anything else is I would love to help people who are struggling with weight loss and who are having a hard time, finding a program that works. I really want to help them, by learning from my story. Like, if I think about it as, if I can do it, so can you. Because, I actually had to battle my body. I had to fight against my body in order to achieve this weight loss. And I have. Some people, all they have to do is change their habits.
Right.
So I would love to get an opportunity. I'm not sure whether it's on YouTube, whether it's working with, someone else, to really start helping more people, build a process in their life where they can lose weight on a sustainable basis. So that's really my goal. I'm just exploring now how I can go about it. I don't have the certifications and so forth. So right now, that's my ultimate goal, what I would love to do in the future. But outside of that is just traveling and enjoying life, doing some of those things that, wouldn't have done, a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Last question, Trent. I know, again, going through something like this is challenging, and everyone has their support system or their network of people who are there for them during the whole time. What has been, or who were your people that supported you, that were stood by you, or what was your emotional support pillow, whatever you want to call it, that kind of got you through this time, so that you also had support to make sure you weren't going to give up during your challenging time?
Yeah. The biggest supporter has always been my mother. When I was at Brown, growing up, running track, always my biggest supporter. She also lives with me now. And, just kind of having someone that I can share my progress with, and, have her, oh, go baby boy, or do, give her a little encouragement, and, just to see how proud she was of me to achieve something that she understood, because she understood how difficult it's been for me over the last 15 years, and to have her to kind of celebrate with me and continue to encourage me, sometimes, make breakfast or make some meals or something like that. That for me was key. It's all, it's good to have that person that you can share your success with.
Yeah.
And for me, that was my mother.
Yeah. Well, that's dope. I remember your mom back in the day hopping on the bus with us and hanging out. So the fact that she's
Yeah.
been there since day one is amazing. I'm glad that
Day one, April 3rd, 1978. She's been
that's right.
there.
That's your day one for real. Listen,
Exactly.
listen, Trent, I
Exactly.
appreciated you so much, man. Any final thoughts you want to share with the listeners about the weight loss journey, about leadership, about track and field, about Brown University, about any of those things? Anything you want to share as we close out?
Yeah, I guess the one thing that I would share is, anything that's worth it in life takes hard work to achieve. And, maybe you're not willing to do everything that I did, to achieve what I was able to achieve. However, there's things that you can do today to get closer to that goal. Nothing's going to be easy. However, the results that you'll get, the feeling you get after achieving your goal is going to be worth it. So, take that first step, reach out to Sean, reach out to the people that are helping you get fit to be more, yeah, it's worth it. Take that first step and keep moving.
Amazing. Trinity, I appreciate you so much. You made the show one for the books, and I'll have to have you back on the show again, talk more about weight loss and about being fit. And I truly think that your platform now for inspiring others to not give up, whether it's those who are struggling with like cancer or brain tumors like you were going through, or other
Mhm.
situations where it seems like the weight is just so insurmountable, right? Like you just can't even
Yeah,
get through it. I think you sharing that with others is dope. And
yeah,
I hope this show will continue to go out there and inspire other people to go out there and do a small thing, right? Whether it's changing their diet a little bit or getting some more workouts in their lives or changing their fasting schedules or just finding someone like your mom to encourage them during the journey. I think this will help them to see, like you said, if you can do it, they can do it too. So I salute you, sir, and thank you so much for being on the show.
all right. Thank you, Sean.
And folks, he said so many poignant things. I mean, Trinity Gray, you guys have no idea. From All American track and field superstardom to now weight loss king and superstardom in that regard. He's done so many things. And he shared a lot of tips today, right? For us to go out there and change our lives. And to see that it is not a uphill battle. It does take daily routines and daily changes to get there. So the coping thing is poignant. The point of a goal isn't to hit it. It's about who you become in the process. He became a different person, like he said, in this body, became a different person for what he wanted to get done, and he did that. And if he can do it, you can do it too. To be more today, so follow him. I'll share his links on LinkedIn and otherwise in the show, so you can follow his journey, his story. And I hope this show, like all shows, help you to be more today. Until next time, folks, have a good day, have a good night, have a great life, and continue to take your steps to greatness to be the best version of you. We'll see you soon. Peace.